What's going on, beautiful people? It is day 3 of my 30-day live challenge. And we're going to take some time to talk about the black sheep. I love talking about this because often people, a lot of my clients, they just feel very much disconnected or out of place. Usually in their family dynamics, in their friendship dynamics, because they tend to be the black sheep. And I love talking to black sheeps because, black sheep with an S, no S? I love talking about black sheep because black sheep are change makers. Black sheep are the folks who disrupt their lineage in ways that heal often their lineage. If it wasn't for black sheep, we wouldn't have the things that we have in the world right now because they decided to sort of step outside the norms, right? So a black sheep is usually someone who doesn't fit in, right? Who sort of disagrees with, what's going on, Lily? Someone who disagrees with their community standards or paradigm. They just choose to live outside the norms, right? Outside of what's been enforced in our society, outside of, like what I said, what's been enforced in our family structures. And sometimes they get a lot of, crap for doing that, right? I see Lily's raising her hand. She's a black sheep. Oh, yes, you is, child. And then black sheep hopefully find other black sheep, and then we sort of change the game. And I know for me, I've always just been that person. I just did things that most people weren't necessarily doing. Not because I was super innovative, but I just had a little rebellious energy about myself. And I always had to question, why am I doing this? This doesn't feel right. Or this is stupid. I don't want to do this. So I'd always find ways to color outside the lines. And I've always been the person in my family to do things very much differently. And coming from a Caribbean background as a Haitian, when you start to do things a little bit differently, people get really, really nervous. And I remember the first time that I started to sort of carve my own path, because it's like a building block. I remember I had decided to, when my son was about, I think 5th or 6th grade, I decided to move outside of our hometown and just go 30 minutes outside of the city. And I had a car, I had my own car, and everyone was scared about it. Just going 30 minutes outside the city. Oh, you don't have any family there? Why would you move so far? And I'm like, okay, whatever. I did it anyway. Then from there, I left Massachusetts and moved to Maryland. And even that was a big hoopla. They were like, oh, you're going to move out of the state? You don't have any family there? What are you doing? And then in 2013, I quit my job. Oh my God. And if you are familiar with immigrant families, they basically work, sometimes overwork themselves. Sometimes a lot of them, especially the old school immigrants, they follow the rules. They wait for retirement. They do all those things. So when I quit my job, it was really weird and no one understood. I think a lot of people thought Francis was losing it. And yeah, truth be told, I was losing it. I was burnt out. And then when I decided to buy a one-way ticket to Thailand in 2016, I actually didn't tell anybody. I remember calling, I don't even remember who I called, but I made a phone call at the LAX airport and I was like, I'm just leaving the country. Because when you start making big decisions in your life, especially those kinds of decisions that are outside of the norm, you can't really tell anybody about that stuff. Because especially if you already have your own personal fears and doubts and apprehension, to bring more fear and doubt and hesitancy to your decision is you're going to talk yourself out of it. So I think my spirit knew that, and so I didn't tell anybody. And I'm so thankful that I didn't do that because it really allowed a lot of the beautiful things in my life to unfold in different ways. It was very challenging because when you become a black sheep, you tend to become a bit isolated isolated from folks, right? You tend to not have a lot of support because there are a lot of folks that don't think like you, maybe don't move like you. So you sort of have to travel the road pretty much solo, sometimes for quite some time before you attract your tribe. And in that process, in that journey, if you don't commit to that process, you'll find yourself regressing, right? Going back to the old life, going back to the comfortable life, the safety of it all, just so that you can fit right back in. And true black sheep, they don't ever want to fit in. They don't. And I remember I came across, and I have it up here. I came across this author. He wrote this book. His name is Ben Crawford. And he wrote a book called 2,000 Miles Together, the story of the largest family to hike the Appalachian Trail. And he shared some insights about what it means to be a black sheep. And he said there are only 3 options for black sheep. He says that you live so authentically that it ostracizes you from your community. And so that means that you're honestly forced to forge your own path and create a lifestyle that's vastly different from anything that you've ever known. So that's the first option. The second option is that you develop the courage to just move out and rebuild your life from ground zero. And then the third option is, can be a lot of folks, where you actually hide your true essence and you desperately feel the need to fit in. And so by doing that, you basically disconnect from who you are and who you're supposed to be. And when you start to do things outside the norm, a lot of people are really tied into social status. Does this look good? Is what I'm doing look good? Am I following the rules? Do people like me when I do this and all that? And so you stop living for you, right? And I don't know about you, but that doesn't feel good. And that could lead to a lot of, you can be pretty much out of alignment. And when you are out of alignment, that causes a lot of, anxiety, depression. It's just not a positive way to live your life if you're not being true to yourself. And when I started to sort of deviate from that path, I realized the more that I deviated from the path, the more I started to find the people that I could connect with. And so if you are going through that process, especially when you're on a healing journey, you tend to be the black sheep because, most folks, there's so much stigma around, mental health and healing and all of that, that if you even decide to see a therapist, see a coach, read a certain kind of book, go on a specific kind of retreat, people are looking at you funny, like, why do you need that? Why would you do that? And then you start questioning yourself. But this healing path it's necessary that you do become a black sheep, because you're going to find ways to find different ways to heal in ways that aren't traditional. I mean, even me, in the way that I'm trained as a clinical therapist, but I call myself, I'm just like a therapist that went rogue and just started doing things on my own differently, because none of the structures didn't make sense to me, and I just refused to be a part of a system or govern my life through a system that was out of alignment. Do I still have my license? Yeah. Do I do things differently? Yeah. And it can be very scary for folks who decide to sort of go that route. But I find that the more that you do that, the more alignment that you receive. And usually any dis-ease or discomfort that people are experiencing, any depression, anxiety, it's because they're living out of alignment. And life is all about alignment and balance. And when there's no balance, that's when there's so much internal conflict. And so we spend a lot of our adult years trying to recalibrate And we try to recalibrate either through our personal lives, right? Finding the right relationships and friendships that help us recalibrate. We try to do that through work, where, we try to find the things that, give us purpose. So we're always trying to tweak along the way. And it's good to experiment. I always tell folks, like, you use your curiosity as the driving force to figure a lot of this stuff out, and know that you're just experimenting, because what you're trying to do is reconnect, right? You're trying to figure out who you are, essentially. And I think it's probably the bravest thing that somebody can do is to experiment in that way, because I'm telling you, people are out here just trying to be safe, right? Safe and secure. And there's nothing wrong with safety or security, but it becomes a situation when it's actually preventing you from actually developing. It stunts your growth. And so usually folks who are labeled as black sheep, in my mind, they have some sort of powerful vision that is sort of being disrupted by those around them, who can't relate, who can't see the bigger picture, who can't connect to them. And so they start questioning whether or not their vision is accurate, right? Or whether or not their vision is something that they should pursue. And one thing a client had said to me that her therapist said to her was that be okay with being misunderstood. Be okay with that. Because not everybody is going to understand you. Because you have to understand, everybody is sort of living in a very different reality. They have very different perceptions, and they also are in different levels of consciousness. And it's not like a hierarchy or better than or worse than kind of situation. But when you understand that people are in different realities based on their own value systems, based on what they believe is true for them, based on their fears, based on their whatever motivates them, you stop taking it personal, right? You're just like, oh, okay, that's good for you, right? And you stop trying to make people. I always use this example, like, if I have a red pair of sunglasses on and you have a blue pair of sunglasses on, I can't make you see what I see, right? Even if I try to and say, hey, where are my sunglasses? You won't be able to see it. So everybody has a different set of lenses on. And so when you start to deviate off the path, you have to be comfortable in that discomfort. You have to be comfortable with the idea that certain people are just going to fall off because they weren't part of the path to begin with anyway, right? And the more that we become more in alignment with ourselves, that's when our true essence comes back. And that's when we start connecting with a lot more authentic relationships. I always see people like, being a life coach, and I work with people of various different phases in their journey and whatever is going on. But it really comes back to one simple truth. Are you being true to yourself? Because if you're not being true to yourself, how can you create authentic relationships? How can you create work that's purposeful? It doesn't make sense. And a lot of people are sort of living in these compartmentalized existences, right? They're one way here and they're one way there, and then they're struggling to achieve wholeness. And you can't achieve wholeness if you're denying your true essence. You can't achieve wholeness if you're denying who you truly are. Nicolay says, I have to share my big idea and visions with those who have capacity to hold them. Boom. You can't really share the big moves that you're going to make with people who have very small, limited visions, right? It just doesn't make sense. And then, because once we do share it, we feel discouraged. And then again, we start to second guess ourselves and we start to doubt. And it's really because that person may not think grand of themselves. And there's nothing wrong with that. Again, I stay away from dualistic language. There is nothing wrong and there is nothing right. There's only what is true to you. And so when you begin on this journey of healing, be okay with being the black sheep. Be okay to being the weirdo that's like, going off. Like, I think my family still don't even know what I do, right? I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to DR real quick. I'll be right back. Or what's in DR? Oh, just doing a retreat. And sometimes when people are questioning what you're doing, just give them the surface level answer. If they're truly interested, if they really want to dig deeper and they really truly want to understand, they will ask more questions, right? And also assess, right? See if somebody's actually ready to hear what you have to say. Assess their level of consciousness. So where are they? If I share this, are they going to be able to receive it? Because you don't want to disappoint yourself either. And I mean, part of that is like, I don't even hold attachments to things like that. But as you're practicing, being more authentic, be okay with just giving that surface level answer. Because you will find the people who really want to dig deep with you, who really want to understand your path, and who also really want to be a part of that path, right? Okay, somebody else wrote something here. Someone said, I don't take it personal with most people. People seem to care when it comes from those closest to them. So truly, Lily, it would be nice to find the tribe that can hold them. We're out here. We're thinking big. We're thinking wild. And we're thinking out of the box, out of the norm, out of the status quo. I mean, there's a lot going on in the world right now that a lot of things are pretty blatant to see. And I've come to a realization that I'm like, oh, okay, things are just kind of working itself out. And, because we're like in a state of I feel like the world's going through a huge shift and a huge evolution and a huge purge, however you want to define that for yourself. And in that process, there's going to be opportunities for people to dig deep within themselves and to create some transformations within their lives so that they can actually achieve the lives that they want to achieve. I think people don't believe that it's possible. It's because it's just programming, right? And we've been programmed since forever to believe that the lives that we can live are not possible. Sometimes people they say to me, how are you? I could never travel like the way that you do, or I could never do. Then you can't, right? If that is your belief system, then it's not going to happen, right? And so I just encourage everyone to be the black sheep, because the more that you be the black sheep, the more you'll attract your tribe. But if you continue to resist that, if you resist stepping into who you truly are, then what's going to happen is you're just going to still remain in that sort of narrow circle, right? And life is meant to be lived very boldly, bravely, and authentically. So continue to lean into being a black sheep, please. We need more of those, because black sheep, like I said earlier, are those folks who really heal the lineage. It takes courage. When I look at my family structure, not everybody is, healing themselves to this capacity, right? And the more that you step into that to heal yourself, it sends ripples, generational ripples. And so that's why it's so important. We need, we need black sheep. We need y'all, because without y'all, who's gonna make the difference, right? Black sheep are the change makers. Who's gonna do something different? Because they actually have to have a vision that's so grand, that's so out of the box, that it makes people uncomfortable. And to actually believe that you could achieve something like that, imagine the energetic driving forces that are behind you to sort of help you create that, right? And imagine who you're going to be along the journey, because it takes a certain kind of person to have a specific kind of dream so big to actually achieve it, right? And so I just think that it's so important that you continue to just live into that and lean into that, and just be mindful of who you associate with and who you share whatever it is that you're going through. And know that sometimes growth, I usually say growth requires a bit of isolation, but healing doesn't need to be in isolation. The growth journey, there will be times where it gets a bit lonely, but that only means that it's important for you to just take that moment to deepen the connection with yourself. And the more that you do that and the more that you practice that, you build resilience. And when you build that kind of resilience, so when you do actually go out there and you sort of expose yourself to the world, it's almost like the coming out story. When I came out with the fact that, I do plant medicines now and I hold these retreats for folks, I did like a coming out video. I was like, I wasn't going to share this, but you know what? Bump it. I'm just going to share it and see what happens, because often other people are waiting for you to say something. They're waiting to be inspired by you. They're waiting to be ignited by your courage. And, and we don't think anybody's watching, but just the little things that you do in your personal life and how you live your life can really inspire somebody to live theirs. Let's see. Lily says, I have to become okay with not being liked and that people were going to create labels for me. Once I was okay with that, I felt set free. 100%. People are going to label you because we're so conditioned to put labels on everything. That's a whole nother life. I remember I was watching something, an interview on a podcast by this guy named Grandmaster Wolf. And he said, the minute that you label something, you basically you separate the universe into 1 billion pieces, right? So labeling is what people need to feel comfortable or safe because they gotta know, even though the knowing does nothing for them except, oh, okay, now I can sort of categorize you so that I can feel comfortable in my own skin. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really interested in living my life for other people, and I hope that you aren't either, because I believe that we all come in with a set of unique blueprint, and because of that unique blueprint, and that path is so unique that it can't be compared to anybody else. It's almost like I don't even understand the comparison. I know even I've struggled with back in the day, like comparing myself, and there are moments where I'm like, damn, I feel like I should be farther ahead. And I'm like, oh, that's the matrix conditioning, that when I used to hustle and grind and do all these things and, had that linear path of like, getting college degrees and going up the ladder, I have to bring myself back and realize, oh, that is not what I'm here for. And so, what else we got? Let's see. Someone said, I love to be alone. My inner world can be fascinating. So do I. I love it. But for me, I'm a natural introvert, so I have to be very mindful. I have to pull myself out because I could be alone for a very long time. And when I used to live overseas, and when you're in a different country and you're living there, it could get real quiet because you don't speak the language. So I got so used to sort of just kind of being in that internal world. But it's also exactly what I needed. When you come from sort of this matrixy kind of world, you can't hear yourself. You don't even know your own voice. And so I needed that extended silence to really start to filter out who I was, what I believed in, what I wanted, without any distractions or disruptions. And there's a lot out there that's really distracting us from really getting to know ourselves. Because if we, in fact, got to know who we really are, man, there's so much power in each one of us. And that's why they try to dim the light. And this is not like a us versus them kind of conversation. I'm not trying to go there. But I'm just saying there's a lot going on. A lot of stuff is going to great lengths to prevent us from acknowledging the power that is within us, because that power, no one can control that power at all, right? Let's see, how do you address equity for BIPOC folks who may not be able to afford these experiences? That's a great question, Jess. I guess afford is such a subjective word, because I think the first step is the willingness. I had this conversation with somebody not too long ago, maybe a few months ago, maybe longer than that. And I think there's this misconception that this is not accessible to BIPOC individuals. And the reason that's a misconception is because what I really think is at the root of this is there's already, especially with BIPOC folks, there's already a mistrust in folks like the mental health field or doctors. Like even my aunt still doesn't trust a doctor, right? She still does her own home remedies. And I think that's what prevents some BIPOC individuals from seeking some of these services, because there's so many layers to it, right? And often I know folks who do a lot of these, some of these works, either discounted pro bono. What can we look at in regards to finances? Like what's getting in the way? I don't even see it as like a BIPOC situation. It's like, okay, well, what can we look at financially to sort of get you there, right? What are some things that we can take out? What are some things can we add? But I think, and this is a whole nother conversation, but I don't think accessibility is the real culprit here. I think it's more of a trust thing. Yeah, your question is very layered, but I don't think it's an accessibility thing, honestly. I think it's more of a trust thing that prevents Black folks from, seeking help, from, BIPOC folks from either seeking help or trying to even have the dialogue, right? Because if you're having a hard time even having the dialogue of what it means to heal and what capacity it takes to go through that healing journey, I could say, hey, let's do these, plant medicines for free. But if you're not even like at a space where you can actually talk about some of this hard stuff, it's not going to help you, right? It's not even going to help you at all. So that's a great question. But that is all I've got. If there's no other questions at all, thank you for signing on and joining me. Kind of got off track a little bit as always, but continue to be the black sheep and you will find your tribe. I promise you that you will, because you just got to clear out. I always say you got to clear out the clutter. And that's not, I'm not saying like a negative thing, but just like there are barriers that are preventing you from reaching those kinds of people, and there are barriers in place. And once we let go of those folks and those things and those conditions, because you have to understand that we create our conditions, right? And then we have to restructure our conditions to allow those connections to take place and allow those opportunities to happen, right? And that's all I got. The purge. Exactly. We're holding on to a lot of different things. And without the purge, we cannot think, feel, see, or connect clearly. All right. I'll see y'all tomorrow. 30 days. I actually got somebody else to join me on this challenge. So kudos to them. They know who they are. So if you want to join the 30-day challenge, tag me and let me know that you're doing it so I could come and watch and support and all that good stuff. Take care, y'all. Have a good night. Oh, then somebody asked, what's the best advice you've ever received? That's a great question. Best advice. Wow, so many different mentors in my life. I think the one thing that rings truest for me is remembering that I'm a spiritual being. And the reason why that resonates for me is because there are some things on a human capacity that's very limited. And when I think of myself as more of a spiritual being, I see the limitless in that capacity. And when I started to, because there was a divide for me, right? And I didn't know what the divide was, and the divide for me was spirit. So here I was trying to sort of make things work, but there was always this disconnect. And so I never felt whole. And when I started to go on my spiritual journey, I started to realize that that was what I needed all along. And that's why, as a therapist, I kind of went rogue, because the mental health field doesn't necessarily acknowledge that part of ourselves. It's all like, oh, mine, and change your thoughts, and da-da-da. That's great and all, but in order for you to change something, you have to feel it. It has to resonate with you, right? So I think the best advice was for me to connect more with on a spiritual level. And that has changed my life. And obviously you define what that means for you. It's all different for everybody. All right. Thanks for tuning in. And thank you for the questions. I'll see y'all mañana. Take care.